Welcome, everybody, to another Tuesday night edition of Cafecito and Canes. Hope you got your cafecito ready. I mean, you're assuming there's cafecito in here. I don't know. Like I said the other day, it could be anything. But we have a guest tonight. This man needs very little introduction. I'm sure most of the chat knows him. But Chris, please introduce yourself for the few that don't know who you are and let them know where they can find you.
How you doing, guys? I'm Chris. I run the Canes Legacy account on Twitter with my buddy Bill. So you can see us on the Canes Insight live show every Wednesday with our guy Steve-O. I'm also a part of Canes Insight. If you know our account, it's all about like the history of the program, all that kind of stuff. Something we would love to go over and talk about, day in, day out. And especially now in the off season, it's really our time to shine, to give you guys some Cane stuff, as much as we can. Though at this point, we'll probably still be talking about our offensive and defensive coordinator hires by like August. So like be able to stretch this out over the summer, maybe.
I mean, I hope that's not the case. But yeah, I always liked your account because I'm kind of the same way in the off season. If I'm bored, I'll find an old game to watch or something on YouTube. So I always joke that Canes Freak 2001 or one of those accounts that post the old games, they'll have, let's say, 4,000 views or 10,000 views. I always joke that I'm half of them. So yeah. It's like I have to be like a good chunk of those. But yeah, man. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
I see real quick in the chat. I see my reputation with Corey Flagg already like precedes me. So
let's see. Oh boy. Yeah. I hear he's not a big fan of us YouTubers in general. I never said anything bad about him. I'm just I speak the truth. I hope he does well this year. I'm rooting for him.
Wherever that might be.
Wherever, a starter, a backup, he'll find a role on this team. I hope he does. So yeah, before we go over the turnover chain stuff, we heard very recently we're hearing on Twitter rumors now that current wide receiver coach Brian McClendon, who was recently hired, recently in the last few weeks and has been recruiting very hard for us, is now a leading candidate to go coach at Georgia for, to coach the same position. And we were talking a little bit about this, before I hit live. Yeah, college football has kind of become the Wild West now. It's just literally anything goes at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking a little bit before the show, but that's really the way it is. And I thought years ago, there was kind of like this aura of it's not the Wild West, things are okay. Everything's settled and guys stay at programs for a while. But honestly, like as years go on, it started to, I think everyone just kind of like peeled the Band-Aid off of, yeah, this is the way it really is. And not disparaging the transfer portal. It definitely worked out well for a lot of guys that were looking for better opportunities for themselves. But I think at this point, really, I wouldn't be shocked about anyone making any kind of moves. I know we even joked about it. I know Steve-O joked a lot of times about for the offensive coordinator hire, like to get Zach Kitley, who just took the job at Texas Tech, as their OC, and his mindset was we'll just pay him more and then we'll get him. And even though a guy could take a job and then leave it. And now here we are with Brian McClendon, a guy who was possibly recruiting for Miami while he was still the interim coach at Oregon. Mm-hmm. And then now all of a sudden he'd go to Georgia. So he'd be like 2 weeks official, a couple weeks official on the job and already out the door. Nothing would surprise me, honestly, with the way things are going. I don't think he'll leave. I'm with Toby there. I don't think he'll leave. I think Georgia has many, many options that they can go through. It's probably just the hottest name that came up because he's an alum. But nothing would surprise me. It's the way the world works.
No, at this point, nothing would shock me. But yeah, I would kind of be surprised if he left with the amount of with the impact he's already making in recruiting. Mm-hmm. And I believe he's loyal to Mario Cristobal. So I don't know. I would be a little surprised about that one.
Actually, real quick. Now that as you were saying that, I thought of something. Though potentially, right? The OC is supposed to be here by Friday, allegedly, based upon the conversation. Yeah. Of the offensive coordinator candidates that we're looking at, there's one guy who is not a quarterback's coach. And that one guy who's not a quarterback's coach, he would be OC/receivers coach because that's what he's done before. And that's Joe Brady. So
that's true.
So maybe there's there's something.
I know Joe Brady was a top target, especially early on in the search. It's kind of quieted a little bit since, the early part of the search, but I know that was like a hot name right out of the gate. So might be something there.
Never know.
But we'll see. I guess things hopefully all will be sorted out by Friday. I really hope so, because I don't know, I feel like it's been long enough.
50 days. It's been 50 days since he was hired.
Oh boy. Yeah. Brady wants $3 million. Do you think that's true?
He hasn't made that kind of money yet. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if someone says he wants it. My expectation was always that he wanted to be able to do a year and get out. Like, that was always my thought process. He wanted to be able to just, I'm going to sign a contract, and if I get a better offer, I'm gone. Right. And I think Mario wanted a 2-year commitment from him, just the stability of the offense and to make sure things kind of flow, especially with TBD potentially being a 1 year and out guy. You wouldn't want one more year, I should say. And you wouldn't want the next guy having to work in a new quarterback, a new system, and then suddenly everything falls apart. So 2 years that makes sense to me. And also Joe Brady seems like someone who would jump at a quick offer to get back to the NFL. So I don't think it's a money thing personally. I think it's a time thing. But I mean, if he wants $3 million, that's kind of a deal breaker off the bat. And he's not going to get it from anybody. He's not getting it from an NFL team. And I don't think any college across the country is going to give an offensive coordinator $3 million. So he's just yelling in the wind right now with that.
Yeah. And I think the average first year OC in the NFL makes something like $400,000. It's not super high.
Yeah, I know. I saw those numbers too. I don't know how solid those are, because they're kind of just numbers that are floated out there, and a lot of them seem kind of old. But I mean, still, if it's 800,000, it's still really low. Whatever,
still a big difference. Yeah.
And I see some people mentioning that he doesn't like to recruit. If he's the receivers coach / OC, then you get a quarterbacks coach that can recruit receivers.
Yeah,
goes hand in hand, so it would be fine.
Yeah. But I was going to touch on this a minute ago. T-Rob was a guy that, I mean, I think nobody was totally shocked that he left. I hate to see him go because I love T-Rob. I'm a huge fan of his, especially from a player development standpoint. How big of a loss do you think that is, or do you think, you think we're going to be fine with what we got with DVD and who we're going to, whoever we're going to hire for that position?
I think he's a loss because he's legit. He's a guy that could walk into rooms. He could show first round picks. He could show successful NFL players. He could show like development consistently throughout his career. People know he's a good recruiter. He's the kind of guy that you could just say, all right, you could send him over there and he'll do a good job going after whoever. I do think DVD had a big part in our successful cornerback recruiting over the last year. It wasn't all T-Rob. Where at a lot of other of his stops, it was T-Rob's show, especially like maybe 5-6 years ago, even up to 10 years ago. That being said, it's a loss because he's a known quantity in the room, on the defensive side of the ball. And right now we don't really have a ton of known quantities back there. So we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So it'd be nice to have him as a consistent piece. Do I think that we can't possibly find a replacement for him? No, I think we can. I think the defensive coordinator hire is going to be a big part of it, especially if we bring in a guy who's a DC/DB coach, because then, automatically, like another thing, maybe they don't get along, just like Manny and he didn't get along last year. So it's hard to keep a guy like T-Rob and make him happy when you're bringing in new coaches, because he's a guy who's been a defensive coordinator. So really depends on the kind of guy you're bringing in, the way they gel, and maybe T-Rob didn't want to wait around to see what was going to happen, especially when Alabama comes calling. I mean, hard to say no to that. So I don't blame him one bit for making a move, especially one that could, ultimately become a head coaching role in the future for him.
Yeah, no, and he's still relatively young in his coaching career. So no, I don't think anybody in their right mind blames him. When Alabama comes calling, you answer.
Yeah.
But speaking of the whole, T-Rob not getting along with Manny thing, I think Mario's doing his due diligence to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen. I mean, we've seen that happen for whatever reason, time and time again over the last 15 years with this program. Mm-hmm. Coordinators and head coaches, or position coaches and head coaches, just not seeing eye to eye, which is insane to me. I don't know how you even let that happen. Right. But I feel like Mario doesn't do anything by accident. Everything's by design. So, like I've always been saying, I think, he's taking his time, but I think we'll be all right with those hires. But let's switch over to the whole turnover chain thing because we got to touch on that. It came out that Alex Mirabal specifically was quoted by one of the recruits or something as saying, hey, we got rid of the chains and all that. No, we're here to play football. I read that and I was like, yo, let's go. Let's go. Like,
Right.
I mean, I was a fan of the turnover chain, specifically the first couple of years when I started seeing it come out where we're getting blasted by 4 touchdowns. I'm like, okay, enough's enough.
Right.
Yeah. But what do you think about it? Do you think it was it ran its course, or do you think it's something that they should have kept in some capacity?
I think like you said, it ran its course. It was cool when we did it. It was maybe not that people argue about who was first. It was certainly the first one that gained like real national steam. It became like a symbol of what we did in 2017 and all. And I think it was great that we had it for that run there. But at the same time, if you want to say that you're on the forefront of college football and you're the game changers and you're doing all this kind of stuff, then you can't leave the same thing for 5-6 years through multiple coaches and say, oh no, you guys have to do a chain. Like, that's not game changing. That's not new. That's not being on the cutting edge of anything. That's just, okay, we have to do these old traditions. That's what Penn State and those schools do, right? Miami has always been first and changed and adjusted, and especially when we've been good and we've had the respect and national kind of clout. So the chain doesn't matter. I think more so symbolically us being willing to move forward when other people say, well, they're obviously going to keep the chain. Like, no, we're not going to keep the chain. We're going to do something else. Like, maybe it's just the attitude is going to come through without needing to put jewelry on. But I think, like you said, when we started doing the stuff, when putting it out there, when we were losing games, like, how can you justify that? You're down by 3 touchdowns, and like, just because it's what you do, you put the chain over someone's head, that made it a loser move. It should only have been done like when you're winning or big moments or like, big turnovers and key spots in games and keep it as fresh as possible. But when we started making it like in every single time, guys sadly on the sideline just like puts it on, takes a picture, takes it off. It's like no use for that. It's a waste of time. And I understand people are upset that we lost it because, it's a cool thing. It's new. It was new. It was exciting, but time's passed. We've moved on. Just like, we love these jerseys. We love these jerseys. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that was 20 years ago. So, and well, I see you got it on too. It's we're not going to go back to those. As cool as it would be, it's just time has moved. We got to move forward too.
Exactly. Randy agrees. He says good riddance. Les, what's up? Let's see if we got any questions. Les, any news on T2? I don't know if he's joking or not. Is there new news on T2? I think
he was asking for edits on his Twitter the other day.
Oh, okay.
It can't be. It can't be what you think it is. I know why guys get edits, but it can't be.
No,
it's impossible. It's impossible.
No way. No. I think that's another thing it's time to move on from.
Yeah.
But speaking of, another breaking news that's happened in the last 24, 48 hours, Antonio Moultrie. We got a new player in the transfer portal at a position of need, in my opinion. Defensive line, defensive lineman from UAB, Antonio Moultrie, who plays, correct me if I'm wrong. Does he play a little bit of D tackle and D end, or mainly he plays in the middle?
He's like
he's a bit of a tweener, right?
Yeah, the way they described him, I watched a couple when he decided he was going to make the move. I watched through 3 of his games. One of them was against Georgia, where it was one of the early games of the season, second game of the season or something. And he played a role where it's like he clearly wants to be able to like kind of get after the quarterback and get to gaps and rush and do all that. But he also played off the edge, and they even described him on the broadcast as being a guy who is a defensive tackle playing edge, but he's got that kind of mindset to be able to switch and move out there. He's very versatile in what his skills could give, kind of like Trayvon Walker was for Georgia, except, obviously not the level of Trayvon Walker as a player, where he could go inside, he can go outside, depending on the situation, depending on what was needed. I also watched the BYU game, which is the last game of the season in the Independence Bowl, and same thing. Like he played mostly outside, mostly on the edge, but not like he's even stood up a couple of times, honestly, but not like a guy who's like wide 9 out there getting after the quarterback. more so like a backside defensive end, a guy that you would trust to set the edge, do his job, do the dirty work, and then make a play when it presented itself, which is athletic enough to do. He's a pretty unique kind of player. I was trying to think of guys that we've had that you could compare to him. Just positionally, maybe like what Alan Bailey used to do, kind of slide inside and out. Calais used to do some sliding inside and out. I don't think he's as good as those guys, but at the same time, I think he's definitely a guy that has a role on this team. He's a guy like a lunch pail worker guy, the guy that you could, third down, you slide him inside, he gets after it. Early in downs, he goes outside to left end. A guy that you could slot opposite like a Harvey or Chance Williams and let them get after the quarterback while he does his job. So I like him as a player. I don't expect him to be an all-time great player for Miami, but I expect him to do his job. And honestly, between him and Lichtenstein, those are two guys that know their role, do their role well, are not going to be stars, but are going to help a team win in that rotation of defensive linemen. Meanwhile, we maybe lost some guys that were good, but were a lot more good and then not good. Good, not good. We don't need that from those guys. We need role players that can do their job. And Moultrie is a guy that can do that.
Absolutely. And you look up his stats, and dude racked up 62 tackles last year. I mean, I don't know what the stats were for, as far as tackles for our defensive linemen off the top of my head, but that has to be right up there. And in the BYU bowl game, dude racked up 9 tackles. Like, that's something I think that's very hard to teach. I mean, some guys just have a knack for being around the ball constantly. And that's valuable, even though he's not imposing with size. He's 6'4", 265. On 247, he's 6'2". So, I mean, that's a big difference. I don't know which one is closer to the truth, but
he looks more 6'2", like honestly.
On the shorter side? Yeah.
He looks on the shorter side, but again, like he's big. If he's 265, it's hard to really judge the weight, but he's a good long athlete. So what I liked of him is that he was playing a gap control kind of defense, and he always was in position to be where he needed to be and make a play. There was one play where he came on it was like a zone read type play, and he knew right away, like he followed the ball, did his job, and everybody else messed up. But he saw the quarterback, pushed the running back inside to make sure he didn't have it, and tackled the quarterback. And it's like, that's what you need a guy to do. Like that's the consistent play. And because if he didn't, there was the last guy on the edge and he got around it. So the guy that does his job. He was very, and pass rush moves, those kinds of things. If you stick him on the edge and you want him to be Jalen Phillips and get after the quarterback, you're going to be disappointed. So like I saw that, I think it was Inside the U posted like a highlight film of him, but he's not a guy that's going to have a super impressive highlight film because he doesn't do like, flashy edge moves and get around and dip his hips and like have great like body control and balance to get around a tackle. Like you're not going to have highlights like that. You're going to have highlights that make defensive line coaches happy that fans don't really understand. Why is that such a big deal? Well, because he's pushing the tackle back into the play, which is helping his defensive tackle, collapse the pocket. And then he's got, what I mean? Things like that. So I like him as a player. I think he's a good addition to the room, a good veteran guy that can help teach the younger guys how to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like how Trent Harris was.
Yeah.
Wasn't the flashiest guy, but made clutch plays here and there. He was always in the right spot. So if he's like that, I'll take it. Speaking of that room, how are you feeling about the D-line going into the season? Because we're going to be very young on the edge, especially. Uber talented. You can't argue the talent we're going to bring in, but we're going to be very, very young. Bringing in some couple new transfers. Lacking depth. I think we're lacking experience for sure. How do you feel about the D-line room, and how confident do you feel about them?
Very skilled, but like you said, veterans are at a premium, which is why I think we brought in these two guys. I mean, yes, I would love to have a high-end defensive end transfer to come in, take a job, be the star and all that, but they're hard to find. And Florida State has done a good job of getting a couple of those guys between last year and this year, getting a defensive end that can come in and be like instant impact dude, especially with Jermaine Johnson this past year as a guy that we liked and we wanted. Instead, we got DeAndre Johnson. which not as good. Not as good.
No, we'll say
Not as
not
good.
as good.
But we have so much talent on the defensive line that, like, if you just have these guys step up, like if you have Leonard Taylor and Harrison Hunt and Jordan Miller seems to be happy and back, and like that's a good group. That's a good group. And then if you add in a Shamar Stewart to that group, and then to be like an inside-outside guy, I know he doesn't want to play inside, but it's where he's going to make a lot of money if he does.
275, bro. Like,
yeah,
good luck playing the edge.
Yeah, like by the time he's out of a good college weight program, we're going to be talking about 290 about that dude.
Yeah,
and you
he's
could,
a D tackle.
I know he wants to rush off the edge and all that, but I mean, hey, you make a lot of money at defensive tackle. They make a lot of money too, but between that, then you have outside, you have potentially Chance Williams and Harvey, and I like the potential of a Jabari Ishmael, and you have guys, and Elijah Roberts, another guy with great potential. So you have dudes that can play. It's just, are you going to get the most out of them, which is really what I hope Joe Salave is able to do. I like the depth being added, like the veterans being added. I think we can have a rotation of, 8 guys that we can trust, up to maybe 10 that we could trust on the defensive line, depending on how these young guys, kind of get ready to roll. If you can get like a Hay, like ready to be that 5th defensive tackle, things like that, then I'd be very excited about it. And, on the edge, so much ability. Nigel Kelly's going to play. So, so much ability out there. Just tap into it, and this D-line can be good.
Yeah. D-line and O-line especially, I think these next 7-8 months are going to be massive for development, because then you got the offensive side of the ball, like, the Ryan Rodriguez's, the guys like Michael McLaughlin, guys like that who were freshmen last year.
Yeah.
That they got to take that next step. Usually the biggest jump is freshman to sophomore year. If we see that in the trenches, offense and defense, this season could be really nice. But that is going to be key for this team, I think.
Yeah, and for the offensive line too. Before last year, I remember talking to people and saying like, we have so many guys. Like, we have so many guys that have started games, and we're kind of just racking it up. Like, he started, like this absurd amount of starts on the offensive line, and we were like, well, we're in great shape. But some of those guys that we were counting on because they had started games didn't play to that level. John Campbell got hurt, so a lot of little things happened along the way. It really comes down to, like you said, what's Michael McLaughlin right now? What is Chris Washington right now? Is Seymour ready to play? Like, because if you want to put Ja'Kai Clark back at center where he was, I think, at his best, then you got to have guards that can maul him. And Rivers can if he's fully healthy. Seymour can if he's healthy, if he's ready to roll. But are they ready? Are you going to try to put Scaife next to him where Scaife is not great? Like, what are you going to do with these guys on the line? Is John Campbell ready to go healthy for spring? That means a lot. Like, there's a lot of little questions about the line where if we could just get some of those young guys to plug a couple of those gaps, even as backups, like if we can get McLaughlin and Chris Washington as solid, like, rotational players at tackle that can go in and not embarrass themselves, that means a lot, because you never know what's going to happen at the tackle position. We can't, if you lose Zion, like, right away, what do? If we panic like we did a couple years ago when Zion first came in, then we're cooked before the season even starts. So we have to have answers to those questions by the end of spring.
Yeah. No, and I feel way more confident than before that we will. But switching gears now to Elite Prospect Day, which happened over the weekend, because Les had a very good question, so we'll start talking about that. Chris, right off the bat, who commits first from Elite Camp?
I as long as he builds a good relationship with the running backs coach, Kevin Smith, because I know he had a great relationship with Hickson. As long as there's a connection there, and Kevin Smith's a great recruiter by all accounts. I would say it's either going to be Mark Fletcher, who is a beast, he's an animal, he's a stud, or my favorite player, maybe in the entire 2023 class, Ruben Bain, who I think someone mentioned there, Anthony Dawkins. He is the best. He's the best player in Florida. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not like watching every high school game, and like some people are. So I could say it from even a point of ignorance, and I don't care. I'll just get away with it. But Ruben Bain is the best player that I've seen in 2023. He is a stud. He is a freak of nature at defensive end. If you give me him, like, you'd have to really bomb the rest of the class for me not to be happy about the 2023 class, because that kid is going to be an All-American, first-round pick, all that stuff. All of those things. He's that good.
What did he have, 26 sacks last year?
Yeah, like, I think it was 29.5 or something crazy.
That's just stupid numbers. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
and
just ridiculous.
you like I was looking at the like first team all state, first team all date, all that stuff, and I'm looking at the numbers, and everyone else has like really good high school numbers, like 16.5 sacks. And like, oh man, this kid was a stud. And then you see Ruben Bain, and you're just like, he's like he played 2 games a week. That's how good his stats are. What a stud! He's so good. He reminded me of like the only guy I could think of that like automatic like watching him play, like initial thoughts was Javon Curse, who I know is a Florida Gator, but like when Javon Curse came in the league and he was just
I love Javon Curse.
He was just special right away. Like no one knew what to do with him. Like the freak. That's all I could think of with Ruben Bain. He's special.
I was trying to think of who in this class is like who's this year's Wes. Like, okay, we cannot miss this dude. Like I was trying to think one offense, one defense. Defense, I was thinking Bain, but then last 24 hours or so, I've been thinking, well, I might be leaning more Cormani McLean. Both are elite players, future, maybe first rounders. Yeah. So, I mean, if you had to choose one, do you choose Bain?
Yeah, pass rusher. Pass rusher. I mean, it's close, but like I go through my like value, like mental value chart. And it's also South Florida guy. So, I mean, that automatically kind of moves him up a little bit too. But even if you disregard that, like it's who's closer to the ball? Ruben Bain is. Ruben Bain's my pick. So I love Cormani McLean. He's going to be a great player, but you can win with lesser corners with a guy like Bain versus having an all-time great corner and having lesser pass rushers. I take that trade off any day. I wouldn't trade Bain for anybody in the class that I could think of other than like some transcendent quarterback player, like recruit that wants to come in. But I got Bain, honestly.
Yeah. Low saying McLean going to be a Gator. I think it's way too early to make that claim. Way too early. But yeah, no, I think those are hands down the 2 best defensive players in my opinion. So it's hard to choose. I mean, you make good points for Bain for sure. On offense, I was thinking, maybe one of these running backs, maybe Brandon Innes. This program really needs to fix the trenches. It's been something has not been fixed for God. We had a great O-line briefly in 2014, but I mean, really since 03, 04, last time we just had a monster O-line that would just maul people up front. Mm-hmm. So I think on offense, my dude is Francis Mauigoa. I think is how you pronounce his name. 5-star offensive tackle. I bring up his stats.
The kid at IMG, right? Yeah.
IMG, 6'6", 325, massive human beings, number 7 player in the country.
Yeah.
We need to start landing some of those dudes. And also, on a side note, we've struggled with IMG and we've struggled with American Heritage over the years. Mm-hmm. If we start getting guys from those 2 schools, I think it's game over. That's my opinion. But anyway, what do you think the offensive side of the balls? Do you agree, or is there a guy that you're like, no, we got to get this guy?
Yeah, I think the tackle would be great. Just to kind of like you said, we haven't. I mean, when was the last time we got an offensive line recruit of that super elite level? I mean, Seymour was very good, but what was that?
Chantrell Henderson.
Yeah, probably right. Probably, yeah. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was Jeff Stoutland, right? That was Jeff. Was that Stoutland? Because most of those guys on that line in 14 were all Stoutland guys.
That was Randy Shannon's final year. So yeah, I think it was Stoutland.
Yeah, so he brought in all those guys, or the majority of those guys in that 2014 line, and then trained him for a little bit. So yeah, Henderson, and even Henderson was like this weird recruitment, and it didn't turn out to be exactly what he was supposed to be. And before that, it was maybe Flowers was very good. Since him, I guess, post that, but like those guys, like they're unique when you get a guy like that. That being said, I don't know if I would put like the quality, like the class on him, because it is so hard to pull from IMG. Like they're a national school. That school might as well be, I know it's in where it is, but school might as well be in like Kansas, because it doesn't help us at all that they're right there. I would love if that changes. Meanwhile, like you have Heritage, when you have a Mark Fletcher, a guy that He's so widely respected. It's kind of like Cheney all over again, where it's a guy that everybody knew he was a beast coming up, and like, you got to get Fletcher, got to get Fletcher, got to get Fletcher, and now here's Fletcher. Same like with Duke, you got to get Duke, got to get Duke. Here's Duke. I would love to get him. If I were to pick one guy, I might say Jaylen Brown, just because there's this like unique like athleticism to him. And I know some people kind of like whisper like maybe corner. If you can get enough receiver recruits that you could put Jaylen Brown at corner, I think D-Money was putting his potential at like Chris Henderson, kind of like a bit like down the road, which is, talking top 10 pick in the draft. It would make that Cormani McLean, if we do miss on him, it would make that not be so bad if you have that guy potentially to stack over at corner. Would he want to come as corner? I don't know. What is he focused on receiver? I don't know, but I would love to get that guy in the building and then see what you can make of him, because that guy is top 15 potential for sure on either side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hit this question. John, I know star ratings usually are based on what their potential is, and sometimes it doesn't matter, but is Francois a 5-star offensive tackle? I'll let you hit this one first. What do you think?
It's, with star ratings, it's like, it's potential. It is potential based, right? It's like how you project these guys out, and they're trying to like get like, and I'm going to talk about that too, because I know someone mentioned Pyburn too. So much of it is like what they think they will be. So like, if you're a 6'3" offensive tackle, 6'2", they're not going to give you a 5-star because they're like, oh well, he probably can't project to, like little things like that. So I think big picture, it's all about what they expect people to be, and also it's offer based. So when those things come into play, I mean, a lot of it is like kind of scientific, where they're not going to they'll give a 4th star for really good, a guy that kind of rises like in the off season, but that 5th star is based on offers and like physical potential. So I'm never going to argue between a 5 and a 4, because like usually those 5-star guys are like such a small handful. It's that 3-4 argument that I usually I'm more apt to get involved in, because some of those 3 stars that they're kind of just overlooking are clearly 4-star level players, especially in South Florida.
Yeah, like we were talking about Lamar Seymour, I think is his name, that one receiver that we have committed for 23. I know E was telling us on Sunday that, I don't know. That's one of those that I don't know how he's not a 4-star. Because of what a great route runner he is, and all the skills he has.
But him, like, he's a guy that's been committed. He committed early in the process. So those guys that commit early in the process, not that they stop looking at, but they're not trying to hype them up anymore, because who draws eyes to the website? Guys that aren't committed because I don't get Miami fans to look. I'll get Georgia fans to look. I'll get Bama fans to look, and Florida fans to look. A guy that's committed isn't drawing eyes to the website. So why would I give him a 4-star when I could give him a 3, and then I'll pump some other guys up, and then when Seymour decommits, then I'll bump him up, because that people, you know what I mean? That's where the whole 3-4-star thing bothers me, because a lot of it is political like that, versus
it is
5 stars are just kind of 5 stars based upon every circumstance.
Yeah. Randy makes a good point there. I think getting James Williams got to help us with Heritage. I really hope it does, because he got a lot of early playing time and looked very good.
Yeah, so, this year not so much with Heritage.
But most years they're cranking out studs. Let's see. I was going to see. Oh, Mark's question. Who was the center in the Under Armour game? We need that kid. Do you know who he's talking about by any chance?
No, not off the top of my head. But I would assume he's committed probably by now. Most of those guys were, or already signed.
Jaylen Brown playing at the next level.
Probably. But I like what I'm seeing. People, like what we saw from him at corner, and what some people are saying of him at corner. I like that potential. I like an athlete like that.
Yeah, no, we'll see. Jay Miller is McClendon going to Georgia. We were talking about that earlier. We doubt it. I'd be a little surprised if he leaves at this point. Let's see. I feel even a 3-star receiver South Florida is usually better than a 4-star or 5-star in Texas or Cali. Maybe in the past. I don't know. Texas and Cali produced some talented dudes.
Yeah, I don't know. But you're right. In the past, like, we're talking. I remember we talked to Earl Little on the Canes Insight show, and Earl Little was like, he told us a story about like, you know, how Miami players used to like help with recruiting, and they used to go to games all through South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And Earl said that he went to a Carroll City game and he saw this like little skinny kid, and he was like, "Oh, this guy is a stud." So he went back to the coaches and was like, "Hey, you got to go get this Santana Moss kid. Like, you got to go get like this guy's a stud." You know, but nowadays, I mean, Santana Moss would not be flying under the radar to the point where
No.
a player had to go tell the coaches, "Hey, go find this guy," because Santana Moss would be on like South Florida Express or The Fire, you know, and people would have known about him since he was 12 because he would have a highlight tape on YouTube, you know. So I think it's just you're not seeing the 3-star South Florida guy who's underrated because everybody like we just load up all those ranking systems with with all those South Florida guys. I think you're a lot more likely to find an underrated guy from somewhere else in the country who doesn't have this now built in. All these guys are good. We all need to offer these guys kind of system.
Yeah. Kevin Porter's saying we need to drop bags for Perkins and Stewart now.
Save the Perkins bag. Just throw it all to Shamar because Perkins is not coming.
Yeah. He canceled his visit, right? Like that. Like
Yeah,
he's not coming.
I think he's going to LSU, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, no, Perkins isn't coming. And that's fine. Best of luck to him. I mean, from the beginning, I kind of didn't think he was coming. So no huge loss there. But Shamar Stewart, who we've been on since day one, and he's visited the campus 8 million times in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
I feel relatively confident we're going to get him. I think we land Shamar. That's my feeling. Where do you think we're at with him? Like, what's your prediction since, signing day is a couple weeks away now?
I think as soon as he pushed off signing until the regular signing day or whatever you want to call the late signing day, I felt good about it. People that know better than I do seem to always talk pretty positively about it. He had that whole Jackson State rumor that like kind of swelled for a second, but I would never expect a defensive lineman to make that kind of move because I know some people said it's not that big of a deal. You're not going to be picked in the top 15 as a defensive tackle or defensive end going to Jackson State. As you would if you're a corner, you want a 4-3, you're good. You're not going to get picked that high if you're a defensive lineman just because you're not getting good tape. So as much as I would like to see like Jackson State and other schools like rise up, that's too quick of a solution there for a defensive lineman. So I don't think that's really a scare. And Texas A&M, I don't think is really in it as much as they were in the past. And Georgia, they are always a threat, but I feel like it would be more prominent. I don't even think the Georgia people are really like putting it on. So that it's us. Has to be us, I think, at this point, which I know is weird to say with confidence, but I think he's the guy. And if I had to pick one of the two, I know linebackers not great, but I take Shamar closer to the ball. He's a guy, and he's a local guy. I take Shamar over Perkins.
I take Shamar as well. And I mean, at one point, he was the number one player in the class.
Right.
Until he started showing interest in Miami, and then he fell to like 7th. Wonder why that happened. But anyway, yeah, can you imagine we land him? You're going into next year, or for the next couple of years at least, with Shamar, Nigel Eek, Cyrus Moss, Elijah Roberts, Leonard Taylor. I mean, that is just a ridiculous amount of talent on that D-line.
That's the kind of talent we used to have, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, does it all pan out? Usually doesn't all pan out, but that's why you stack chips like that, because you don't need every guy to pan out to be a superstar when you have a line full of very, very good players. Like we won a championship in 2001, greatest team of all time, right? One of those dudes was Matt Walters. Like, you don't need Andrew Williams was like a JUCO guy. Jamal Green was a solid player on the end up. You had McDougal, who was great. You had William Joseph, who was great. You had Vince as a backup, kind of like working his way in. But no one else on there was like truly great. Like playing on that rotation, you had really good guys that did their job, who were very good players. You stack good players around great players, and super great things happen.
Yeah. I think that was an example of you had a solid D-line that everyone did their job. There was no real drop-off, no weak link, but 2 Hall of Famers at linebacker and like 3 Hall of Famers in the secondary. Yeah. So like no one was getting open. They weren't running the ball. So like, yeah, the defensive line ate quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Anthony, John, in 2022, what linebackers besides Perkins should Miami look at? That Miami's probably recruiting specifically at inside linebacker. I don't know. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from signing day. I don't know if are you also including the portal in that, or are you talking high school? Because I don't think there's. I think we're pretty set as far as who we're going to get in this class. It's down to like a short list of guys.
Yeah, unless there's some sort of like, it would be a guy that would not super like, it wouldn't blow anybody away if there was still a linebacker out there that we would add. I mean, Wes is the guy. I mean, if we run, no matter what defense we're going to run, I mean, these days you run like whether it's a 4-3, like that's really more of a nickel. You have two like real kind of middle linebackers or whatever you want to call it. When it's a 4-2-5, you have your two inside linebackers. So it's Wes is going to be one of those guys. I really look at the portal for being the best option when it comes to linebacker. And Anthony I saw you clarified it there, linebacker. There's a couple guys. There's one guy in particular that every day I pray he enters. I know that some people have talked about the name, so I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to. But as a potential thing down the road, but there's a guy out there who it just would make perfect sense if he were to enter the portal and be here, and he'd start probably next to Wes, and then it would fix our issue entirely. And it's not Terrence Lewis, but there's a guy, like I just pray every day that guy enters the portal. Please enter and then help us with linebacker.
Yeah. Let's see. Me a DC name badge. Shamar wants to know who DC is. So do I. I'm not sure I buy into the whole thing that Shamar, like us not having DC is going to hurt with Shamar. I don't know. Maybe I'm being biased because I'm a fan. Maybe I want this to be true, but everyone's saying, look, the DC is pretty much set in place and the players know who it is. I hope that's true, but I don't know. I think Shamar specifically, I think it's Miami or Jackson State, honestly, for Shamar. And I'd be kind of surprised if it was Jackson State, to be honest with you, even with the guys that they've pulled. Yeah, that's just me on that one.
I don't think. I mean, I would. Yes, it would make sense if a guy knew who the DC is. Do I think that all these guys know? No, I don't think all the players know and the recruits know who the DC is. I know that that's kind of the talk that they know, but there would have been a leak. There's like nothing that goes out to recruits stays like solid because someone would have said something to somebody and we would know the person. Like, I don't think Mario said to them, look, if you tell anybody, like, I'm breaking your legs. So that's the only way you're getting these guys to keep from talking. So someone would have said something, right? And that would have gotten out. Someone would have blown it on Twitter or whatever, right? I know there's like 24/7 guys. They're just like chomping at the bit to say a name. So I don't think they know, but I think that the style of defense has been established, which may be a reason why it's taking more time because you want to get a guy to come in and run a particular defense versus maybe one that he's more comfortable with. Then that might require more convincing and kind of like seeing who fits best where, especially when you're already hiring the coaches, right? So, I mean, whether it's Doug Belk, who seems to be the guy with the most juice right now. I don't know why you would have waited this long to get Belk if he's the guy. Like, that part doesn't make as much sense to me because it's not like he's doing anything else right now. Because you could have had him and you could have like been able to talk to these guys. Like, here is exactly what you will be in this defense. But I think Shamar would come without that because he's just too good. It's not like you'll find a role for a dude like that. So I wouldn't be worried if I was Shamar.
Yeah, no. And also coordinators come and go and players know that. To me, it's really the head coach you're playing for. But I think what's the biggest thing for him is the type of defense he's going to play in. If he's going to play end, like you said, I think he's going to get convinced to move inside because he's just, unless he starts eating a lot of salad, he's not going to be, he's too big, man. And he's still growing.
Yeah. Like I see someone mentioned Chase Smith. I hope Chase Smith moves like permanently efficient a linebacker. I got to see what the new defense is called and what it looks like. But like, there you go. Move him to line. Like we saw Chase Smith come in at like what? I forget. Maybe 220, and he's already like 245, some crazy number.
Like not like 215, something like that.
Yeah, this isn't.
He was like
a phenom, but that's what happens when you get to college and you're like that weight comes on. So I mean, but Shamar will be fine. He's too talented not to be, no matter what kind of defense.
Yeah, didn't he play like 7 snaps against FSU and have like 5 tackles or something?
Yeah, Chase he's all over every time you get him on the field, he's all over it. He's too talented.
Let's see.
But you can leave James back. You can leave James back. Like I was person number one on the move James up. Like I said before, get your better guys as close to the ball as possible. I was on the forefront of the James Williams will be a linebacker bus. Good, funny from Kane Idaho right there. But I was on the forefront of the James Williams bus moving to linebacker. But if you have a defense where you can kind of like move heat with him, Avante, and Cam, you have 3 movable pieces in there that you can really slide around and do different things with. You can give cover 3 looks, 1 looks, cover 2 looks. You can move one up to the slot. Avante could play in the slot. James could play like a linebacker kind of role. You could do. There's a lot of things you could do. So I'm not worried about him at safety as much as I was maybe confused as to why you'd have a 6'5" safety, but I think they'll make it work. Whatever the DC is coming in is going to say, all right, I want to use this guy every single snap. So if it's safety, so be it, especially with Chase.
Yeah. I had to show Kane Idaho's comment there. Yeah, no, and a lot of people
potatoes are starchy. That'll weigh on you, all those potatoes out there.
Yeah. No, and a lot of people are mentioning Troutman. Troutman and Tyreek Austin Cave are 2 guys that kind of get forgotten about a little bit playing in the middle. Like I said in the trenches, these next few months are big for guys like Troutman, for Austin Cave, for maybe Avery Huff. Well, Avery Huff's been with the program. He's going on 4 years now, but maybe he finally turns the corner. There, like you said earlier, there's guys, but who gets developed finally?
Yeah. I mean, I would love Austin Cave to be the guy, Camden, stepping up there, but I would love it if Austin Cave, because I think Dade Ward said he's got great speed. He's a good athlete at position. But the guy I would look at, if there's a surprise, the guy Philly Kane just said, Tyler Johnson, who is kind of like a ninja, because you could barely find like tape of him coming out of high school. But I mean, there's a lot of people that said, and this is Jaquan's little brother, but people said that he might be the best linebacker in the state when he came out, but nobody talked about him. Nobody brought it up. But people that are really smart about that stuff said he's one of the best in the state. Just people just don't talk about him. He might find that new DC might see all those guys in that room and say, whoa, who's this guy? Why wasn't he on the field? So I'd be interested to see what Tyler's able to do for sure. Mm-hmm. And for Huff and Brooks, like you said, they've been in the program for a while now. I feel like with Brooks especially, like Huff, I don't know. I don't know what the holdup was. I don't know if it was the vendetta that Manny had. But with Brooks, I feel like if there's a role for him, it's just like get him in there on 3rd downs, let him rush the passer, like get him in a position where he's comfortable. He's probably too late to move to any kind of like full-time end or edge thing. But if you have a role for a guy that can rush the passer on certain downs, bring him in, because we know he's good at that. We know he likes that. So maximize his ability.
Mm-hmm. Can you see the Hurricanes running packages where they have 3 safeties and 2 corners on the field next year? Oh, absolutely. 100%. And they should do that, because you got 3 potential All-American guys at safety right now. So, yeah, I can totally see that.
It's your nickel defense, but Avante's your nickel guy. Or James Williams is going to slide up to play more of like a linebacker role. But those are your 2 options there. Avante is probably the best nickel guy we have on the team, even though he's not like your traditional corner, like in size, but he's a little bit more solid. But he's your best nickel guy on the roster right now. So yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
He's one guy I cannot wait to see as a sophomore, only because his freshman year got taken away. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see him bust out this year. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, and Thomas Davis, that's another guy people are bringing up.
I like, depending on the defense, I like him as a guy that you can kind of, put him on the edge and give him, as like you said, Trent Harris before, I envision him in that similar role as like an edge guy who can rush the passer, but also play like a stand-up or cover this like the flats if you need him to.
Yeah.
Probably more. Probably more than 2. We're still like 8 scholarships or something over 85, and that's you add Stewart and a couple other guys. Say you add 4 guys on signing day, then you add another 4 guys in the portal, then now we're 16 over. So we have a lot. There's going to be a lot of attrition, and there's going to be like a nationwide bloodletting that people don't understand. How talk about the portal now. There's going to be a nationwide one after spring. it's going to be like June 1st cuts in the NFL. A lot of guys are going to get scholarships taken away unless the NCAA does something, which I don't think they will.
I don't think they will this year. I think over time they'll start putting, some regulations to this thing because it's a little too crazy right now. I mean, I remember a year ago there was 1,500 or 2,000 kids in the portal. It has to be higher. And it's unfortunate because the majority of those players don't land anywhere.
Right. And I think the initial thought was that as guys move up, other guys will slide down. But it's not that easy because you have to have guys that are willing to make those decisions. And, everybody wants to move up. Nobody wants to have to admit they have to, oh, I'm Division II. I'm not a Division I, or like I'm a low-level G5. I'm not a P5 guy anymore. And when those conversations start happening, like they're so desperate to find any role, they'll even take bad fits over good fits at lower schools. Nobody wants to admit it. And ultimately that leads to these guys, waiting too long, losing opportunities, and eventually just getting forgot about. It's like in the NFL when a guy gets cut, who's a guy on the same team for 6 years, right? And he's a solid player for 6 years, special team or whatever. His contract runs out or he gets cut like late, and you figure, well, someone else will pick him up, but nobody does. And he just gets and a year out of the league, you're forgotten about. That's what happens to a lot of these guys.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, please, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, guys. And please also go over to the Canes Insight channel, subscribe there if you haven't. And Canes Legacy is a separate channel from Canes Insight, correct?
No, we're all there. We do all our stuff on
Everything's there? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're stealing all D-Money's clout, so make it easier for ourselves.
I heard Scaife is playing center and redshirt Clark. Any winter workout? Yeah, I heard that rumor about. I think it was Flo that told me that he's hearing Clark may redshirt this year, which I'm not sure why you would do that. Have you heard those rumors?
I think maybe it's his size, or unless like he's got lingering injuries. I know last year that was the concern.
I think it's a size thing.
Yeah, size would you can't. I mean, you can't have both of them playing next to each other, right? So then you would have to be one of the two playing center, and you could redshirt Clark if you want to. Like the question is, would Clark want to versus just go leave and go start somewhere else? Which he's good. He's better than Scaife. For sure, and was a million times better than Gaynor. And Gaynor just went to North Carolina. So if you're Clark, like why wait a year if you could just go somewhere else and get a job, get a starting job and then do 2 years and take a shot at the league. But I mean, I could see it if he really loves Miami. Maybe that would be that, or he loves Maribal and Cristobal and those guys. But I don't know. I'd be surprised. I think he's just better than Scaife. I'd rather just see him play.
No, me too. I think you saw the O-line improve immediately when he took that spot at center.
Absolutely, 100%.
We'll get off in a few minutes, guys, but real quick, the only guy I want to see more of next season is a guy I was banging the table for last year, starting corner Isaiah Dunson. I was really in favor of both Dunson and Clark getting more playing time last year, and they did. I think they developed a little bit. They didn't take the step forward I thought they were going to take, but those are two guys that could make some noises here. We'll see.
For sure.
Let's see. Dave War saying, I don't want Mason. He's DC, love a 4-3. We don't have players to play the 4-3 defense. We have a few guys that can play the 4-3 defense, in my opinion. I don't think it will be that. Yeah, now we do. I don't think it'll be that tough of a transition, especially the young guys.
Right. And I think Lichtenstein and Moultrie are both guys that could play in a 4-3, but I don't think he'd bring like a traditional 3-4. I don't think he'd bring a traditional 3-4. I think he would bring a 3-4 that is more like multiple looks. Maybe that is the base, but at the end of the day, you're going to get a lot of 2 inside linebackers, which we did this year, 4 guys rushing or 4 guys coming after the quarterback, which we did a lot this year, and then playing a lot of cover guys behind it. So 5 DBs. So I mean, that's kind of where all of college football is going to. It just looks a little bit different in different ways you've set it up. But I don't think he's coming either. I think that's out. But I think we could survive if we brought in a 3-4 focus
guy. I think we'll end with this. Jay Hall, do we finish top 10 now? Are you saying top 10 on the field or top 10 recruiting? We can answer both if you want. Let's start with recruiting. Do we finish with a top 10 class in 2022?
Oh, I think someone did the numbers, and we'd have to get like every guy, like all these the top 4 guys, like Yuli, Stort, Pyburn, and there's another guy that we'd have to add this time to get to the number 10, which is
Connerly?
difficult. Who's that?
Is it Connerly? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, Connerly. Connerly's the 4th. You have to get all 4 of those guys to get to the number 10, if I'm not mistaken. That's like without anybody else adding. So I'm gonna go with no. Probably not as likely. But I think we'll be in the vicinity. We'll be closer to number 10 than a lot of people like to make jokes about us being way down in like the load more category. But yeah, there's Flo. Flo was speaking of Flo, a nice conversation earlier on the Discord that we're both involved in about Ken Dorsey.
Mm-hmm.
Flo is on my side. We're fighting a valiant fight. So glad to see Flo in the chat there.
Yeah, let's see. I was going to make another point. I lost the comment. It'll come back to me. But let's see. I like our portal additions. Any chance Caleb Williams comes to the U? None whatsoever.
No.
None whatsoever. TVD, Garcia, Ja'Cory Brown. And then after him, you had the dude from the Battle Miami camp from California, who I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah. I know
you can make an attempt at the name. I'm not going to.
I'm not going to try. I was trying to practice before.
But that dude is elite, 5-star as it gets as a QB. And he's going to be a high priority. So, no, I don't think he's coming here. He'll ball out.
Yeah, in 2024, we're loaded up too with South Florida guys. So Tyler Aronson, I think, wants to be a Cane. So
yes, that's right. Let's see. The wide receiver. Oh, is that who you meant? Yeah. Oh, that's who he meant. Mario Williams, the wide receiver from Oklahoma. Nope.
Wherever Caleb, probably USC, but I would assume wherever Caleb goes. So.
Yes, State Warrior John, great show. Keep up the good work. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Please go subscribe. I don't see any more questions. So I think that about does it for us. Chris.
John, I'm surprised there was no history stuff. I was waiting on you slide the history thing in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of us that are
oh, you know what?
Sit there and watch, go ahead, what you got?
When I did my solo episode last week, the conversation came up, and I like to have this conversation with other historians. The what if Schnellenberger stayed 20 years? What if Jimmy stayed 20 more years? So let's have that really quick.
I watched the show and I saw what you said about it. So
yeah,
I listened to your points about it. What's funny about it? Whenever I talk about it, it's always funny because if Howard stays longer, there's no Jimmy, right? And you never think about the dominoes that fall. If there's no Jimmy, there's no Butch, because Jimmy was a part of Butch's staff, right? And a lot of those guys are part of Butch's staff. So what happens if Howard stays for an extra 10 years, right? If he does an extra 10, so he goes until 94. How many titles do we win in that spot? Because that's really where we won. That's where we won 4 of them, right? Or 3 more of them, I should say. Does he beat 3 between 84 and 94? Does he beat 3 titles?
I think he does.
It's very, very likely that he would. The guys that he had brought in for the 83 season, when those guys in 86 were seniors, we're talking Brown and Highsmith. And,
oh my God.
That team doesn't lose with Howard Schnellenberger in 86.
No.
Probably does a lot better in 85 even. So, 86, we have a title. And then already for 87, does Howard keep the train rolling and get guys like your Irvins and all those dudes? Does he get all those guys? Probably. Or guys of similar ability level. So then we probably win 87 and we keep that rolling. So I do think he would have broken 3 titles in that 10-year span. And without Erickson, you have a guy who knew what he was doing. We probably don't get sanctions. We probably don't get killed with sanctions in the early 90s. So we probably hold on a little bit longer before things are kind of fall off the map. Now, players are different and some of the things might be a little bit different, but I think we would have at least 6 for sure, probably 7 national championships right now. But then again, no 2001 team. So do you sacrifice the 01 team? We would have had really great teams, but we wouldn't have had that team. So we lose that. So is that enough to trade? Is that good enough? Or do we go Jimmy? And if Jimmy stays, then we still probably potentially get Butch, and I think that might still work, but no extra titles for that range.
Yeah. If I had to, I mean, with Howard, you get the consistent winning, you get championships, but Miami doesn't become Miami. Miami became Miami with Jimmy, with the fatigues in '86. I mean, that was the day we became Miami, that everybody loves to hate, and we love that they hate us. I mean, to this day, right after the Mario hires, people came out of the absolute woodwork, criticizing what we were doing with the NIL and criticizing the money we were spending. And they're, UM's reallocating funds. They're taking money away from COVID patients, which was just nonsense. It was just, no, you reallocate funds in a university if it's going to make you money. That's what other big schools do.
Right.
They take money from profitable areas and apply it to other areas that are going to make more profit. But of course, these are like non-sports people that just come out of the woodwork that want to hate on us.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if I had to pick one of those coaches, I would say, man, I would love Jimmy to stay like an extra decade, because I think we end up with the same, 6 or 7 championships to this, like you said, to this day. We'd be sitting at 6 or 7 right now. We'd still have that attitude and the swag and all that stuff. And he would not have let the stuff under Erickson happen.
Mm-hmm.
With the sanctions and all that. I don't think he lets a guy like Nevin Shapiro come in.
Right.
So that's just my opinion.
John Kane made a good point right there in the comments. He said, with Howard, Miami becomes Bama, a dynasty that wins but isn't remembered. That's a good point, because people kind of makes these Bama teams kind of interchangeable. I'm a huge college football fan, but honestly, a lot of it kind of just rolls together, where you don't remember who was on what team, or who, maybe they played together, these guys didn't play together. So I could see that. That's a great point. Where then like you said, the character of the Miami Hurricanes came with Jimmy, really more so. Kind of building off of the blue collar beginnings of Howard into this flashier thing with Jimmy. Yeah, probably don't have that. So yeah, I could see that being forgotten for sure. And then we can't just go get a guy to say, hey, we were good 20 years ago. Why don't we do this thing again? We probably don't have that. So interesting.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Anyways, I promise next time I have you on, it will be more history based.
I think there's got to be something. Let's just fit one little thing in just to see. Because I would love to get in a whole show of history based arguments, but I know nobody out there wants to see it, because they just want to know. They want to know who's committing next. But I'll argue about that stuff all day long, or just discuss it or whatever, but all day long.
Yeah. But anyway, Chris, tell them one more time where they can find you, when and what time you guys have your show every week, and we'll go from there.
Well, on Twitter, you can follow us over here at Canes Legacy right there. It's a pretty good follow. I encourage you guys to do it. Even if you just want to watch us in visible form, you don't have Twitter. You could see us on the Canes Insight live show on the Canes Insight YouTube channel every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. I do the show with Bill, who's another guy for Canes Legacy, and Steve-O, our X's and O's guy, the best in the business. He breaks a lot of that stuff down, and he's been anxiously waiting there to be some OCDC hires, because you got this stockade of X's and O's and tape and stuff to unleash on the world, but he can't, because we don't know who we got. So but yeah, so check us out tomorrow night. Just like you guys that got involved in the chat, we love getting involved with the chat and having that discussion, so always a good time. But thank you, John, for bringing me on. I really appreciate it. It's always good to talk to you too, and I feel like we are in agreement with a lot of ideas, so it's always good to yes, I thought that too. Have someone come along with it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Please go hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. As always, it's all about the U. Go Canes. Have a good night, fam.